listening to this.
Welcome to the Infill Podcast, where we interview the most interesting members of the 3D printing and maker communities, live and with audience participation. And now, here is your host, Jonathan Levy.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the most error-prone podcast on the web, the Infill Podcast. Last week, I completely forgot we had an episode because I was so focused on my kids. And this week, we have no buttons, no tech working, just two human beings talking about 3D printing without the special effects. I'm joined today, as you all can see, because I can't hide the camera scenes, by Peter Solomon, who's an acclaimed industrial designer, was chair at Savannah College of seven departments, Peter, was it? Has over 20 industrial design awards hanging over his head. All that is very interesting. Has his own industrial design house, studied industrial design in Italy. But you all know him as the co-founder of Wham Bam Systems. I'm so curious, Peter, to get into your whole bio. I'm not sure we're going to get to talk about 3D printing at all today. Welcome, and thank you for coming on. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm doing well.
So, Peter, I'm super curious because you have lived all over the world. You've designed products. I wish I could show people because I have your website pulled up. You've designed products or demos or concepts for Bell & Howell, Boeing, Racer X. I saw Lego on here, Mattel. Tell me your life story. That should take about an hour.
I'll summarize, and then you stop me if you want to have some more in depth. So I studied at Pratt, New York. That was my first undergraduate in design. After initially starting out as an electrical engineer, I was an inventor. I'm never happy with the way things are. I always want to try to improve anything that I see that's not working, and that kind of unhappiness or discontent breeds innovation in a form. I went to Pratt in New York. After that, I worked for quite a while in California. I was doing design as well as special effects, props, everything else, building a lot with my hands. I was doing furniture lines for galleries and things, did a lot of museum exhibits. And then in 1992, I decided I wanted to get a graduate degree. This was after 6 years of work. And I had won a scholarship to Domus in Italy. So I went to Domus to get a master's degree, thinking after that I'd go back to work in the US, and somehow managed to stay in Italy for 18 years.
Wow.
And, along the way, I was working for 6 years in a very famous design firm. And I eventually opened my own studio and then two startup companies. So far I have, I think, 7 different startup companies. Unfortunately, it's almost an addiction that I just can't stop. I have an idea, and if none of my clients wants to do it, I just do it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I really got rooted in Italy. I got married to an Italian, and we had our first son in Italy before we moved back. I had a company that was at the time doing stackable garden furniture, and that'll lead back to some of the first 3D print projects. And I had another company doing very high-end, all carbon fiber guitars. I was consulting for every type of industry: musical instruments, office furniture, airplanes, buses, trains, cars, sporting goods, you name it.
Wow.
And then, yeah, it was really exciting. And somehow along the line, I really defined my focus, which was trying to resolve problems for the end user with innovative solutions. So really all about a long research process to find out where the problems were, the workarounds, the difficult entities that most people just accept as, oh, that's just the way it goes. And if I could resolve those, first identify them, and then resolve them with innovative solutions, then we create products that the end users say, wow, why didn't somebody think about that before? It's just right for me. And that builds brands and makes market leaders. And 99% of the time, our products were the showcase of the trade shows, and everybody was around them saying, what is this? It was really a lot of fun. And like you said, I won, I think, over 22 international design awards, including the Golden Compass, the Compass d'Oro from Italy 2 times, which is the greatest award to me. And In 2010, I moved back to the States. My first son, when I was 45 years old, and my wife were complaining that I didn't have the time to spend with the family with all the other activities I was doing. We
Yeah.
decided I had to move and relocate and find a position with one company and get away from all of these holdings. So Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, recruited me to run 7 departments. And the whole point of them bringing me over was to make it the best design education in the world. And that was a challenge I couldn't turn down. I said, until now, I've taught at Istituto Europeo di Design, that's an Italian design school, part-time, once a semester to give back, but they never really wanted to hear from me about curriculum changes or my point of view. So when somebody said, we want to hear what you would do, wonderful. I went over there. It was a lot
Wow.
of fun. It was a lot of fun until they changed some structure and they didn't want to hear my ideas anymore and asked me to be more of an academic, and that wasn't for me. So I left and did my own design work all over again. I'm down in Florida, and somewhere along the line, I had been contributing to 3D printing forums and to do maker spaces and do it yourself forums all along, just sharing my own little tips and tricks, how to
Yeah.
glue rubbers, how to 3D print this, how to make an upgrade. I would share my models, share my tips. And some people started just say, hey, we don't even want to know how to do it. Just give it to us, make it for us. And one of them was the first magnetic flexible build plate systems. And
Cool.
yeah, a lot of people just said, tell us, instead of telling us how to do it, just offer it.
Yeah.
And one day I went home to my wife. I said, I think I'm going to start a company. I'm going to call it Wham Bam. I just thought, pop it off, Wham Bam, it's done.
Yeah.
She said, you're crazy, another company. And I contacted my colleague in Taiwan, who I'd worked with for a long time for sourcing and manufacturing.
Hmm.
Stephen, he's a great friend and a great partner. I said, we're obviously going to have to produce in Asia because of the cost competitiveness, because these are for 3D printers that were a lower cost. And then I contacted my marketing and SEO person, Melinda, and the three of us formed the company Wham Bam, and that was it 5 years ago today.
Wow.
July 1st was our anniversary, so this is our
Congrats.
fifth. Thank you. As a matter of fact, Wham Bam's running a 5% sale. If you didn't catch the earlier, bigger sales, we're running it all through the end of the month. So,
Awesome.
anybody
We'll put a
our
link in
website.
the description as well. I want to ask because as far as I know, it's like you and Tom Ford who have succeeded as Americans in Italy. I can only imagine with the Italian bravado and also like the pride, the national pride that Italians have being some of the best designers for the last couple centuries. Was it hard as an American coming in and making a name for yourself in Italy designing for these companies, or did you get the stamp of approval because you were educated in Italy?
Both. There was a clique, always was a clique of these famous designers who stayed together, and I just had to be humble and prove myself. I came in with a little bit of something different because I had the American technical background. I know how to build things and make things work. So I come up
Yep.
with these fantasy ideas, but I'd bring in a working prototype to the engineers, and they'd say, "Well, we have to do that." And somehow, I just took my own little space and made my mark and became part of that group, which was nice. It was very nice.
That's very, very cool. Like I said, Italians pride themselves so much on design. So to be able to earn the respect of probably, let's be honest, I mean, the Germans are the best engineers in the world, but when it comes to design and designing beautiful products, it's the Italians. So that's like
Yeah,
an extra special, honor. And as you
the,
said,
the passion of the Italian design with the American technical, which would be similar to the German technical, and brought my own tune to the table.
what are you most proud of that you've designed throughout your career?
I get that a lot. I'm so in love with every project I do because of the background stories and
Hmm.
what we go through and what the original client asked me to do rather than what actually came out of it after the research.
Sure.
But I'd say the most exciting one that really took me to new places was the carbon fiber guitar. I'll show it to you.
Right. You said you did a whole company around that.
Yeah, originally this was an all carbon fiber guitar. It was the world's first. And
Brilliant.
some of the most amazing musicians in the world play it, still play it, have played it. And I was
What are the
backstage.
benefits of it being carbon? Just a lot lighter to lug around?
When I was commissioned to do this, it was for a wooden luthier in Italy, small entity. And the head of marketing I knew, and he said to me, "You've innovated everything in the world, but the electric guitar really hasn't been touched for 40 years. So what would you do?" So I studied everything about guitar before I even thought it would be a carbon fiber guitar. I studied what makes great sounds, the physics of sound acoustics, the myth of what maybe luthiers and other people believe contribute to sound, playability. I interviewed a lot of great guitarists to see what they wanted. And I came up with a product which its form itself is super light and compact and nice to carry on the body. It's form fitted.
That's awesome.
The materials are incredible. They conduct sound much better than wood ever would.
Wow.
They broadcast a wider range of sounds. So if you put a sound through brass, you're going to get all the very good highs. That's why they make bells out of brass.
Yeah.
If you put through wood, you get the lows and mids.
Right.
But when you put it through carbon fiber, you get the whole tonal range. And Stradivarius was even using it as reinforcements and faceplates of some of their best violins.
Okay, I think we have to hear you play this thing a little bit.
I will not play it after being backstage with the most amazing players. But the other amazing thing about it is it's so rigid that the sustain lasts forever.
That was weird. The buttons decided to work. We're back though.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So anyway, no, it was a great experience. Actually, it was really a fun experience converting it from idea to 3D, because back then, 3D was great and it was starting, but we would always start with sketches and then foam carvings from 2D drawing. And that is one of the final models. We must have made like 50 of these until we got it right. And then we took that and we used a program back then called Solid Thinking, and built the surfacing for it, and had the first pieces milled out to spec, and then finally made the carbon fiber mold. But back then it was a lot of back and forth between 2D design to 3D quick hand models.
Right.
But if you to make a change, you'd make it to the 2D design. That way we knew that the program in the computer was accurate. You can't just change it and then you have no idea where it went. So it was a lot of back and forth, and it was very interesting.
Do you still find yourself actively doing design work, or is Wham Bam pretty much your focus these days?
Wham Bam has taken over 99% of my time. I still have my design studio when I can take on a smaller client, but even for Wham Bam, I'm the design director. So all the products come from me, and we have a team of technical assistants that are both designing, testing, helping me out everywhere. So yeah, cool. There's satisfaction in that.
You mentioned a lot of 2D models and computer software that wasn't ideal. When you do design something, obviously Wham Bam has different criterias, but if you're going to design something for yourself around the house, what tools do you like? Because on the one hand, you're a trained designer, right? Like you've probably used all the different CAD softwares. On the other hand, there's always new software coming out. So what's your process and your software stack now?
Well, I guess the process for designing something around the house is always deciding if it is even necessary to go to 3D, or if I'm just going to hack it out of wood or steel. But
right.
If it goes to 3D, we've recently switched over to Fusion.
Okay.
I like it. I'm not as proficient. I was such a SolidWorks user. I'll go back in time. So I started off before there was really a lot of 3D programs in design. Right. Alias was out there if you had a Silicon Graphics mainframe for $500,000, and slowly saw the software and the machine availability coming into range, and started playing around with 3D Studio Max. There was an amazing program out of France called Amapi, and it was called Amapi by Yanawat, because these French guys loved a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and they would say, "I'm happy. You know what? I'm happy. You know what? I'm happy." And it was such a great interface. I really wish it was still around. You just grab a tool and throw it away by running your mouse off the screen, grab another tool. And I really, really became proficient there. It was wonderful. The only problem was that you took a NURBS object or a smooth object, and as soon as you did a boolean on it, it would convert to polygons, and it wasn't very nice. And I remember my salesman, who just said I was like the highest level of AMAP back in the day, saying to me, there's a new program that does what you want it to do. I'm going to show you this beta. And he brought me in this back room and showed me Rhino for the first time, beta. And that just tripped me out. And I learned Rhino and loved it. And somewhere along the way, I needed more of an engineering program, switched to SolidWorks, used that for many, many years. And
Wow.
wasn't for the expense of the licenses and some of the non-friendly business practices they started to install, I would have stayed with that. But now I use Fusion.
Cool.
And I throw it right over to the 3D printers, whether it's FDM or resin, as soon as I have an idea.
Now, I would tell the audience that I promise we'll get to 3D printing soon, but I'm still really interested in just your mind. And I have a fair bit of jealousy, I think, because I think I would have been very happy to become an industrial designer, and I was kind of pushed away from it because I wasn't very good at math, so no one took me down the engineering path. And I was kind of always told, like, you stick to the soft sciences. But I want to ask, you mentioned giving back. You've done a lot of teaching of design. For folks in the audience, I think personally, I'm pretty sure you'll share this opinion that like a 3D printer is really, really cool, but it's more of a gateway to understanding how you can solve problems. And it's this moment of empowerment more than any other tool. I've got every power tool under the sun practically. But this 3D printer is a gateway to like, I can dissolve. It's like, the Steve Jobs thing. I can change the world around me and I can design things and I can make things better than they're made. And what are some starting steps, resources, websites, courses, books that you would recommend, if one of your kids or grandkids or whatever was saying, hey, Peter, I want to get into design, maybe not as a career, but I just want to think like a designer and I want to be able to design things and solve problems the way you have. What are the resources that you would point them to?
For starting designers, that's a hard one. I don't have off the top of my head the books or the resources that I'd say. There's so many great books out there on industrial design and design process. I think the most important thing to do is if you're trying to do it on your own for yourself and not as necessarily a profession, I would say just start to try to think of the problem, model something out, print it out, and test it. And never think that the first try is ever going to be even close to your final.
Right.
Usually it takes me about 50 prints until I get it right.
Wow.
Really. It's a tool. It's a work in process. And in order to get something really nice, it's an iterative design. And you have to accept failure as much as success. And the failure is the best part to learn from and let other people try it. Yeah. I was designing a monofin for mermaids. And the foot forms that were available for female feet were not at all ergonomic. They were to make feet look very elegant and thin, but they weren't for propulsion and comfort. So I actually measured hundreds of women's feet with special tools that I made to measure them quickly and trace them, put them into 3D, printed them out in GPU, had them test it, told me it was rubbing here or good there. And every foot's different. Foots have bumps, different places and different shapes. And it took so long until I had one that almost everybody who put their foot into said, this is the most comfortable thing in the world, and created my own ergonomic form that then developed around a series of other innovations in the monofin. Cool. That was also a good design award that we got.
Very, very cool. Are there any designers that you look up to throughout your career that you've said, wow, you're inspired by their work?
Oh, there's so many. I think, and I'll name a couple of Italians as well as others. Alberto Maida, I don't think too many know about him if you're outside of Italy, but this guy he combined engineering with design to make some of the coolest things. He made a super lightweight chair out of carbon fiber before anybody was ever using carbon fiber. He made a light out of titanium sheets before Apple ever used titanium. And he would combine things to find a poetic beauty in it. A guy from Germany, Ingo Maurer, would do similar with lighting, which I really appreciated. Ron Arid in Israel for his incredible forms and love of metal and interesting shapes. I think there's just so many that I think are amazing, and each one has their own element they brought to it. I still remember the first time I went to Barcelona and saw Gaudi's work after studying it for years, and just incredible architecture that blew me away. Every single time I see somebody's work in person, and especially if I can meet them. Gaudi was not the case because he's gone for a long time. But if I get to meet them and get to ask them, it's a great exchange.
Really cool. So I imagine you encountered 3D printing pretty early on, maybe before consumer 3D printers were even a thing. Tell me about your indoctrination into the world of 3D printing.
Sure. Yeah, I was around as the first machines came out, stereolithography machines. Of course, there was CNC and subtractive, but additive. The first machines were millions of dollars, and nobody could really own them. They were in a few service bureaus, and you'd pay a ton to use it. I still remember I brought it out for this occasion. This chair, I was working on a stackable garden chair, which later I'll show you the photos of the events. We designed this in 3D, first in paper and then in 3D. But this cost me $2,000 to make. I actually had 3 or 4 of them that broke in transport back to the US, a lot more elaborated. But $2,000 for something, what would that cost now? Like 50 cents in PLA?
Probably.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I probably waited about 2 weeks. The process was extremely slow. I had to wait my turn. And but it was extremely helpful in us learning about stackability and economy and structure.
It's really high quality for a very old 3D print. I mean, I can't see any layer lines or anything.
Well, I had sanded and primed it a long time ago. But
okay.
I mean, you could kind of see it here. We were even putting on clay and modeling where we want some other structural ribs to go. And that's on my website, that Ultra. I don't know if you have the possibility to switch screens. If not,
let's see if the buttons work now. All right, here we go. 1, 2, cross fingers. All right, we have a screen. We have all the screens. Let's show only one screen. Which screen? Ultra. Got it. All right, we're up. Cool. Everyone can see it.
I don't see it, but hopefully everybody sees it. So the chair eventually, it came out in mass production in an injection mold that weighed 8 tons.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was an incredible mold. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And thank God we had 3D design and 3D printing to go back and forth before we made any major mistakes. But this was a chair that was made to be elegant and super comfortable with my own ergonomics, but at the same time sell for $15 in kind of Home Depot type of big box stacking, and shipped in mass. And that won quite a few awards and was published in tons of magazines and books. It was really nice. It was also in a great book, chair design, that featured only multi-$1,000 chairs, and we had a $15 chair in the book, which was amazing.
That's really cool.
So that was nice, because that was like the preface of us moving from 3D directly into stereolithography and then into making the molds and verifying along the way. And there was the missing gap. Before that, we would go from 3D to 2D, cut it out by hand, verify, make a change again. So this was the first time it was all working together. It really worked. And then slowly, I started to run a few labs that had a lot of Stratasys machines. Over at SCAD, we had 9 Stratasys machines. I ran a couple of other labs with objects and Stratasys multi-material machines. These were all hundreds of $1,000 machines, and it still seemed inaccessible to me and my design firm when I opened it up. And when the first machines came out under 10,000, I just started snatching them up. I was so impressed that we could actually test and play with that. And a few years later, my life was shattered when I started seeing these Creality machines come out for $500, and the forums were saying, these will print as good as these nicer machines that you have. So I bought one, And with a little bit of tuning and mods, I got it to print like my multi-$1,000 machines. So I eventually sold those machines while I still could and made a farm of mostly Creality FDM printers and made a bunch of mods. And that's where I found out the power of social community, because you couldn't get any answers from Creality. The instructions stunk. There was no back and forth, but the community was there and everybody was chipping in. Oh, how do you do this? And how do you improve that? And we were all sharing. And that's really why Wham Bam came out, because I saw that the modding and the community was there. So I was receiving as much as I was giving back, hopefully, and looked for problems and tried to solve them wherever possible. If it was something that was 3D printable, I just shared the files, and it's quite a few files out there that I've made. But when it was something that was a little more elaborate, then I started to say, hey, if this works with Wham Bam, we're going to bring it in.
That's cool. And what was the first product? Was the first product really a build plate?
Yeah, our first product was the magnetic build system. We call it our flexible build system. So it was the flexible magnet, the spring steel plate, and a sheet of PEX, which is our own formula material. Then you had to glue it yourself onto the build plate onto the flexi plate, the magnet onto the bed. We were the first ones to have this combination. At a very similar time, Prusa had embedded magnets as well as BuildTak. Prusa was trying to develop the powder painted PEI. BuildTak had their PC surfaces. We came up with the idea that those were all proprietary per machine or per their line. We wanted to make something that anybody could add on at a lower weight. Weight was a factor for these bed slingers, and higher performance. And we engineered everything. We engineered the magnets to resist 150 C before they reach the Curie point, the point which they'll permanently lose magnetism.
Right.
Have a stronger magnetism. We created alternating polarity patterns and did everything we could to push the limits. We improved our build surfaces, and we had 6 sizes when we started out. Now in FDM, we have, I think, over 35.
Wow.
Way too many. And then we opened up for resin as well. And that took off, and we have just as many in resin, maybe more.
Wow. Yeah,
so
people are commenting in the comments. I saw someone say, someone said that Wham Bam is the absolute best build surface on their Bamboo Lab. That was Stefan 3D. I have Wham Bam plates on my Voron and on my Bamboo. I like the textured plates, though. I use the Wham Bam when I need precision and like cleanliness. I use the texture when I want it pretty. Someone did ask in the comments, why no textured plates from Wham Bam?
We do have texture plates. They're texture PEI. We don't have them for every size. I think people with the Bamboo might have seen we're hesitant to put one out because Bamboo had a whole bunch of texture plates.
Right.
We didn't really want to
LiDAR and all that stuff. Yeah.
But we do have one for Bamboo that's a thicker, heavier duty plate. We wanted to add something. It's our XTR plate. Our XTR line is our thicker and heavier duty line. Usually we make them for the larger prosumer industrial machines. We made one for the Bamboo. It's brand new. That way people who have a problem with warping and issues, we have it.
Cool.
But yeah, we really, even that, it was tough because people are selling them for peanuts. And I've seen these factories, I've seen the quality of the product that comes from them, and they use rusty steel, and there's a good chance that the PEI comes off. There's an inconsistency of PEI layer. There's a variety of steel they use. There's never a consistent flow. And of course, the glues are all knockoff 3M. They're counterfeit 3Ms. And, they managed to get a great price point with all these knockoffs. But Wham Bam can't do that. We have to stand behind our guarantee of quality and high performance. We do something, it absolutely has to be proven the best by us. It takes us about a year to get a new product out to market, if you can believe it. Even though dying to get it out there, and we have the greatest product between improving it in production and manufacture, beta testing it, further improving it, and then making the mass production and getting it to our fulfillment center. It takes like a full year, so we have a lot of different products out there.
That's wild. You would think once you have something perfected like the PEX that you guys have developed, It's just a matter of cutting it into the right shape. And like you guys have done the R&D, but you're saying, no, it takes a whole lot. Or you're saying when you do something new, like XTR, that takes you.
So both. If we're just doing another form of something we've done for a long time, that doesn't take as long. It takes quite a bit of working back and forth with beta testers to make sure it fits on their machine, it works with their bed leveling.
Right.
If it's resin, we have to work with how it trips the Z limit, any other adjustments. So we do a bit of back and forth before we ever even make it available to the public. But I'm talking about a new product category, which we're always developing. And
wow.
We have about 40 on the table. What always happens is at least 50 of them we can't go forward because it would either be too expensive for what the perceived value is. Everybody compares the cost of the upgrade to what they paid for the machine. The machines are so cheap now that it's difficult. But we have to make a good quality product, or because somebody else comes out with a version before us, and that's happened a few times, and it gets you so angry. We had one of the cure stations we were working on similar to our hot box, and that got canned right in the works when a couple of manufacturers came out with the cure station. There's quite a few other projects like that, but when it does make it to production, then we have all the setup to do of getting it into our warehouses, getting it on the website, getting samples out to everybody, and then we can launch it. And we have about 5 new products coming to market very soon, which I'm very excited about.
I want to get into those, and I want to hear about your experience, having a partnership with someone in Asia. But first, I do have to take a quick moment and thank this video's sponsor, which is PCBWay. Speaking of production in Asia and finding high-quality production in Asia, which, as you know, is very, very hard. PCBWay does it all, you guys. They do industrial 3D printing. They do PCBs, obviously. But they also do CNC machining. They do sheet metal fabrication. They can do injection molding for you. They can cut out titanium for you. And they can do even metal 3D printing. And even if you don't know how to design stuff, I don't know how to design a lot of stuff, and PCBs, I certainly don't. Check out their shared projects, because people much smarter than me, people like Peter, will design things like PCBs or all different kinds of projects, and then they'll upload them. And these are really, really cool projects that you can do with your family, with your kids. You want to build a Spot the Robot dog, you can do it. You want to build a combat robot, you can do it. And all you have to do is click one button, and you get all the PCBs from the person who has designed them to you, and that person earns a commission when you buy their designs on PCBWay. It's a really, really cool way just to spur innovation and let us all not 3D print more, articulated dragons, but actually 3D print some stuff that we can expand our skills, build out some really, really cool projects, and maybe win some BattleBots competitions as well. So thanks to PCBWay. Check the link in the description. They're awesome people to work with, huge supporters of the channel. Tell me, Peter, do you know how to design PCBs? That one has always been over my head.
I am not an electronics engineer. I know the components that go on there and how to work with electrical engineers to get what I want, and how to make my suggestions to improve. So,
that's like when I did an MBA, I'm a little ashamed to admit, and we learned accounting, and the professor was like, now, I have no illusions about the fact that any of you are ever going to do any actual accounting, but you do need to know what to ask for so that someone who with a better mind for numbers will actually, give you what you want. Tell me about the whole experience of, I think a lot of times, especially right now, we see Taiwan, China as competition, right? And undercutting. You have a very interesting business model. You have a business partner, I think you said is in Taiwan. And so you have leaned into, hey, we can't beat Asia for production. What's that experience been like? And I want to hear all about it.
So we design and develop all the products in-house in the USA. My business partner's in Taiwan. We have a small team over in Taiwan that runs production. And we have a team on the ground in China of about 8 people that make sure everything gets done the way we want to and develops the way we want to. China has been a wonderful resource for many, many companies. It's also has its million pitfalls. I mean, I know many people who go over there and order, a container full of product that they've already agreed on, and what comes over is completely different.
Right.
In our case, we have complete quality control, quality assurance, and we work with select group of manufacturers. One is dedicated fully to Wham Bam. We cannot own a factory in China as a foreigner, but we can kind of take over the production and make an agreement to work with them exclusively. So we have our own little group of producers that are working with us, and it goes relatively well. There are the times that we have communication gaps. I'm making 1 million videos and doing a lot of teleconferencing, and they're calling every manufacturer and holding the phone up to the screen as I'm doing a napkin sketch. Since COVID, I haven't been able to go over there, but I'm planning a trip at the end of August to go over and meet with everybody again and work with them. But it's an interesting experience. The hardest thing for me about Asia are all the copiers. I mean, we come up with a product, and as soon as it's on our website, somebody's copying it with cheaper quality materials, poorer solutions. They just see what it's done, they put it out there, and they say, here it is. It's a third of the cost of Wham. We can't even make it for the price that they're selling it for half the time because they're using the worst materials possible. And it's just a fact of the business. So we have to keep on innovating, keep on offering the best quality, and hopefully people realize that. If it's the free choice of the consumer. If they want to buy something at the lowest price, they should. If they're trying to make an upgrade and want the best possible, that's what we're trying to provide.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit on the episode where I interviewed Dr. Tao from Bamboo Lab, because there's a shift, and I'm interested to hear, as a designer, your perception. And I asked him, because he was at DJI, his whole team was at DJI. And I think DJI was, at least in the West, that was maybe like the vanguard. But now we're seeing it, right? Like BYD just got to Israel, right? And they have all these electric cars, and they're not copying anybody. And we saw it with DJI. We see it with Bamboo. And, people have their gripes, like, oh, they copied Core XY from the Voron project. But the product is not a copy. Design-wise, it's not a copy. And now you're even seeing, like, Bamboo is being a victim to this as well. So there's a company in China, HS3D, I had the product here, where they came out with a knockoff nozzle of the Bamboo hot end, but it's better because it fits a V6 and it has hardened materials and you can replace it faster and and all this stuff. So it's, I think, really cool to see that arc. And there is always going to be the copycats, right? Yeah. But to see that arc of like, no, there are some really phenomenal industrial designers coming out of Shenzhen right now. I'm interested to hear your take on that as a designer and also as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think, if they're taking the time to research and make innovation and make something better, it's really, my hat's off to them. If they're just simply copying and doing it cheaper, that's what I look for the most. But I saw this through my career. Like I said, I did school in the 90s, late 80s. And back then, Japan was the cheap place to make things. And there was a horrible saying we would have between designers that the only thing Japan ever invented was the photocopy machine to photocopy. Yeah. But then what happened, Japan invested a lot in innovation and design. Yep. And they studied American manufacturing, car manufacturing especially. They brought it back, they improved on it, and they went miles ahead. When I was in Italy, Taiwan invested a lot of money. They created the Taipei Design Center, Taiwan Design Center. And they had an office in Munich, one in Milan, one in New York City. And they offered any manufacturer in Taiwan to pay for a foreign designer from Italy, from Germany, or from New York. And I worked on a few of these, the design work, and pay for the molds in order to get great new design and IP coming into Taiwan. And it created a new culture, and it educated them. Taiwan was just the copiers. Back then. Now they have some amazing brands and amazing products. And the same with Korea. I had classmates from Korea that their education, their living was paid for completely by the Korean government, with the only agreement when they graduated, they were forced to go back to Korea and work at least for 7 years. And they created their line. China's next on the list. It's going to take a long time to change the mentality that they've really ingrained about copying. I'll tell you a funny side story if we have the time. I was in China on one of the trips. I was, looking for secrecy and protection IP with the new factories we were interviewing. We're looking for quality. And my partner, Stephen, is ushering me everywhere. Excuse me. And he tells me that this woman, sales representative from one of the factory, wants to meet with me for lunch. We had already met them. I said, I really don't want to. Oh, please, she's begging me. So I did that. And then a couple of days later on the way to the airport, she has to meet you again. She has a gift. I said, I don't want to. I said, let's just get to the airport. And we stop at a rest stop on the way. And I said, what's going on? He says, she just wants to give you a gift. So we pull over. Half the time, I never knew what they were saying. They were just agreeing on things on their own, and pull over. And she's there waiting with a gift for me. And she said, just to show you the quality of what my factory produces, here are 2 imitation Rolexes for you. Have a look at how incredible these are made. And I looked at them like, you're telling
You're missing
me
the point.
missing the point. I was asking you about protection of IP and new product, and you're just showing me quality of a copy. And as soon as she left, I gave them to Steve, and I said, get rid of these. I'm not bringing them on the plane with me.
Yeah, that's a huge risk. In Italy, you can actually serve jail time for fakes.
And I didn't, and I mean, like you said, she missed the point. It's ingrained into their nature just because for so long they've been the world's copiers.
Right.
Startup in America wants to make something. They take the competitor's product, they send it over there and say, can you make a change and make this cheaper? And they'll do it for you. I mean, they did where they lied. So it's going to take a long time until they all have that same level of knowledge. Innovation will get them further.
That was Dr. Tao's. When I asked him, I said, what changed in the last 5 years? It's not just DJI. And he said, basically his summary was Chinese started traveling and they started going to Europe and they started seeing like the actual products that that were being copied. He's like, we went out in the world and we started seeing things, and now we we get it. We're part of the global community. And so we understand the market, we understand the need. And look, China's got some great schools, great universities. So it's very interesting to me. And it saddens me when people immediately write off anything made in China, because you guys have demonstrated that there is phenomenal quality made in China and Taiwan and Bangladesh for that matter. But it is a matter of like philosophy, right? Are you making the best? I mean, Tesla is making cars in China now.
Yeah.
Are you making the best, or are you? Yeah.
Yeah. If you have the quality control methods and process, and you go in there saying, this is what I want, it has to be the best, and you develop it correctly, you can. Many companies you're making amazing products in China. If you just go to anybody and say, hey, can you do this for me? You're going to get the worst. It takes some definite effort to do it. A funny little story once again. Do you know who owns Segway?
No.
So Segway, of course, the balancing vehicles, interesting brand. They never managed to really diffuse. At a certain point, they're being sold as tourist rental, in different cities. It was just too expensive and they couldn't get it out there. And their number one knockoff copier was selling it at a much lower price by the boatloads. And they finally found enough money to actually buy Segway. Not only for the name, but adopt their innovation, their thought, and bring it 5 steps further. So, it's funny. They're taking their steps, whether it's buying it out or sending their students to schools. I know in most of the schools that I was teaching at, there was a large population of Chinese students in industrial design program paid by the government.
Sure. Yeah. Volvo now, I think, is owned by a Chinese company. Jaguar is owned by an Indian company, Tata Group. And there's a lot of these, right? It's like you can buy your way to learning, right? The Soviets tried to do it for a long time. It didn't work out for them. But you can buy design cultures. And I once heard the head of design, I saw a documentary on the head of design of Chrysler. And he goes, South Korea, won't name any names, but there are 3 or 4 major car companies in South Korea. He's like, they flew over here on private jets and they hired my entire design team. He's like, you ever notice that Hyundais are looking really good these days? It's all Americans.
You know what? I have to find the book, but there was a great book. I went to Pratt with a a great friend of mine, Alfonso Baiza, who's now the head of design for Nissan, and what's the other, Citroën, the whole group.
Mm-hmm.
But way back when, he was recruited by Nissan's California satellite entity.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry Hirschberg, who ran that team, was the first one to create an American satellite for a Japanese car company. And with a very small team, he said, we're going to compete with the Japanese 300 designers with only 4 designers and 8 engineers. And we're going to compete for any car project. And if we win, we only ask that you give us the job of completing the car. And that was the start. So many companies have copied that since then. Japanese companies have opened satellite firms in the US. But Jerry made such a great book on something creativity, directing creativity. I have to remember the name of the book, but he wrote a great book about how to manage creativity in a productive sense, but also the cultural clashes between the Japanese and the Americans, and some really great stories. But it's really worth reading because it was right at the revolution of the Japanese coming into their own and how that worked.
So I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about 3D printing and ask you, about you, and are you 3D printing as a hobby, or for you is it still, or I guess at this point, just for work and developing? Do you have 3D printers at home or only at the office?
I've taken them out of the home. I actually try to keep as much technology out of the home, even though I have my laptop in the cases that I need it. But way too many times I would just be working all the time. I'm a workaholic, unfortunately, and that's bad for family. But we have endless amounts of 3D printers here, and I find a model that I like. I fell in love with that one recently.
Wow.
Nothing beautiful sculpt, not my design, but
gorgeous.
I just, and sometimes everybody in Wham Bam is encouraged to learn how to 3D print if they don't already know how to do it. The receptionist, we're trying to teach the new finance person. We want everybody to have the culture of the passion, whether they're into cosplay or miniatures or printing tools or whatever it be. We're constantly, I'm always throwing something on the printer, whether it's That's awesome. New concept of my own for Wham Bam, an innovation for the home, some hobby product. I saw this model and so wanted to paint it up, a fester that printed, and painted it up. And, those kind of things that happen all the time.
That's great. If you just need something to work, you guys have a lot of 3D printers, I imagine. You need a print to just work. Which 3D printer are you sending it to?
You're going to know. What do you think?
Bamboo.
The Bamboo. Yeah. And it's terrible. We have a Bamboo X1C, the original Kickstarter. We have a P1P. We got the Anchormate M5, which we got right at the same time. And then we've got a slew of other printers. And it goes in that line. Everybody in the studio is sending it right away to the X1, if not to the P1P, then to the Anchormate. And it's like, guys, spread it out. I want
There's
everybody
50 printers,
I want our tech team to have time on all the machines, because also constant printing is the only way we're going to find issues or conflicts. Right. Somebody tells us about a filament that's sticking too well or not enough.
Yep.
We need to get on all the machines and see what's happening and try to resolve that. Yep. But it's just like, it's too easy to send it to the Bamboo and know it's going to work, and also send it from the computer and, everything else. So,
I'm going to blow your mind, and I'm going to say that I discovered a printer that has that same level of it just works. And you're going to laugh because it's a printer that had major issues and they recalled it. The Cheedy X Max 3 showed up this week. I've not had a single failed print, and I've been running it constantly. I've been printing ABS, PLA, PETG. This thing is a beast, and I'm really trying to find like what's wrong with it. It is a beast, and it's 330 by 330. So it's like, okay, I leave it at the office. I'm like, I'll just load the entire plate with 50 different things I need in black ABS and come back tomorrow, and it's like Bamboo level quality.
Really?
Stunning. I'm blown away by it. Actually blown away. And
the intelligence doesn't know if there's an error or
there's no camera even. So that's the shortcoming. It's the price of the Bamboo, but there's no camera, none of that. But it's also 330 by 330 build volume. So,
the plate size.
330 by 330. I can measure it for you tomorrow. No problem.
Yeah. anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'll measure it for you.
But I'll check out the machine. I'm
It's
always looking. I
I'm
mean,
shocked.
we really don't need new machines, but whenever something's really good, we always try to get it, especially if we think that the rest of the community is going to start jumping onto it. So we just keep on.
I don't know. I feel like if Bamboo comes out with, the X1E or whatever, Nathan Builds Robots saw a patent application. So if Bamboo comes out, and they can compete at that price, people are going to go with the Bamboo, maybe, probably. But this thing is good. It's just really, really hard to stand out as much as Bamboo has,
Yeah, Bamboo made so many innovations and just made it so friendly. And it's unfortunate when the copiers are only trying to imitate the Bamboo, even the look and the style and everything, rather than saying, what did they do right? Where was the innovation? How can we go further?
Right.
So we're all playing catch up, and I think Bamboo already has that leading edge because they spent all that R&D time to just get where they are. And now for the last year since launch, they've been improving and thinking what the next product is. So I think they're going to keep.
Yes, and I roasted the Creality K1 last week because it's, as you said, it's also ran carbon copy. But how do I do this without getting in trouble? I suspect that Bamboo is smart enough, from what I've seen of their business strategy, with no insider knowledge. I suspect that they are smart enough to say, if someone's going to cannibalize us and make our product obsolete, it might as well be us.
Yeah.
I don't remember who said it. I think it was Steve Jobs, maybe, or Henry Ford, like some business luminary, who's like, someone is going to make our product obsolete and undercut us, might as well be us. And I would suspect that Bamboo is going to do that sometime in the next couple of weeks or months or year. I don't know.
A good product strategy for any company. I don't know if you know the good, better, best pyramid.
No.
If you take a pyramid, on the bottom is the quantity of sales, the mass sales. That's your good product, the stuff that sells at Walmart or the lowest price or the Crealities. The better is your higher end product that sells the lower quantity, and the best is your top of the line for the multimillionaires. And it's always good if the same company offers these various verticals that you can appeal to the people who have lesser money and would like the lower cost and want to go for the upper end echelon. So I'm looking forward to see. I believe Bamboo did everything right, have some really brilliant people behind them. I'm looking forward to see what they do.
Absolutely.
My hats are always off to every company that does something new and impressive and innovative. There's always respect for that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm very glad that my job is to talk about the printers and not design them, because the competition has become so fierce in the last year. And I mean, even to be Bamboo and be in the privileged position that they're in, like, you just got to imagine they're looking over their shoulder constantly,
Yeah. And this is happening to us as well. I mean, we're constantly, printers are starting to come out with their own flex plates, which are getting close. They're not our same quality. And it's just, we're constantly seeing the knockoffs until the point where we have to say, what are we going to do next? And even when we made the Mutant, which really was one of our most elaborate long-term products to actually bring to market, and that's our tool changing head. You can mount on any machine. I don't know if you know the Mutant. We patented that. We caught some slack for patenting in this world of open source, but we really needed to protect ourselves. We made it clear to everybody that if you wanted to play with the design and improve it for yourself, non-commercial, please do it. We weren't going to enforce the patent against the tinkers and the home people. We just did not want other Chinese companies basically just knocking us off. Sure. But we see, this innovation takes a long time and a big budget, and it's hard. We're just always looking for where we're going to be able to help the end user to have a better experience, whether it's 3D printing or post-production or pre. And that's where Wham Bam is.
Yeah, and this conversation comes up almost every single week now on the podcast, where it's like, if people want great innovation and they want, companies to push the needle, open source isn't cutting it anymore. Tom Sandlander did a video on it. Like, open source is no longer serving. Open source gets you Prusa's level of innovation. New printer every 5 years, incremental, nothing against Prusa, but it's evolutionary. It's not revolutionary. When you start patenting the shit out of things and licensing your patents to anyone who wants to play ball, then you get bamboos.
Yeah. And open source is really good for software, in my opinion, or shorter turnaround products where people could spend a couple hours here and there and improve a piece of code and put it out there. And for products, it's great as long as you have people willing to work for free. But if you're trying to support a company and support an R&D firm, you just can't afford to do that. It takes way too much money. The amount of money that goes into manpower, testing, materials, and molds is exorbitant. So we need companies who are also just leading the way with innovation. We all had a sour taste from Stratasys patenting the heated chamber. I mean, that was terrible. They kept it all to themselves and wouldn't let anybody else use it. That probably soured the market. But there's ethical ways, and E3D has always done it very well, even when they started patenting, and sharing. And there are companies out there that do it. It's just a shame when you see companies like Slice Engineering have their newest hot end exactly knocked off by a Chinese manufacturer, even using a similar logo, but changing it slightly, or Bondtech having these clones out there. It's a shame. They spend a lot of money to do something really, really well. Somebody comes out with it, but it's the nature of our market, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time here, Peter, but I do want to ask you, what's next for Wham Bam? Can you tell us what areas are you guys interested in? As you said, a lot of printers are coming with flex plates now, but you guys aren't just flex plates. So what are interesting areas for Wham Bam that you can tell us about?
So a lot I can't tell you about, but the ones that I can, we're doing some product line expansion. Some of our hot boxes, we're offering a larger one for resin, which is really nice with a whole bunch of new features, which is really wonderful. We are coming out with something for people who mount lasers to the printers in order to make it a lot safer for them. Safety is a big element in our company. We just find ourselves to be very moral, ethical, and responsible, and we don't want to put out anything that risks anything. So we're trying to help people. And I'm thinking about we get some interesting toolkits. The other stuff I really don't want to say until we're ready. But we're coming out with new stuff. And we're working to bring some surprise to the market. Hopefully next time we talk about it.
I will look forward to it. Until then, I will enjoy my Wham Bam plates. Where can we send people? I know you guys have 2 websites. So Peter, tell us what's going on. And there's a 5% sale going on right now. So pitch us, man.
I hate doing that part. But anyway, go to WhamBamSystems.com. That's our main informational website. And if you click on Shop Now, it brings you to our Shopify store, which unfortunately has a different URL. We're in the middle of getting on all Shopify, beautiful site. But WhamBamSystems.com will bring you there. And for this month, it's our 5th year anniversary. For the whole month, we're offering 5% automatically off anything you buy. And there's different contests out there. Follow us on social and find out about them. There's ways to win $100 gift cards and some other really cool things happening this month. Get on our mailing list. Feel free to reach out to us. We also really pride ourselves in giving one-on-one tech support, even for just general 3D stuff. Reach out to us. We're always there. Anything you need for technical, just technical at WhamBamSystems.com. Either myself or one of my team will respond.
I can attest to that. I've had questions for you guys and been like, how do I get this filament to not stick so well? And you guys have been super responsive. So you guys are doing God's work over there. And I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity just to explore your fascinating and super inspiring story. So, Peter, thanks so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I hope it was interesting. Thank you.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And the buttons.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infill Podcast. For show notes or links to anything mentioned in today's episode, visit thenextlayer.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to leave us a review wherever you're listening, or click the like button to let us know. And consider subscribing to The Next Layer on YouTube so you can tune in live and participate in the next conversation. We'll see you on The Next Layer.